Good morning, Charles. How are you?
I'm doing well, Dan. How are you?
I'm well, and just want to say good morning to you, who are listening to us this morning. Appreciate each and every one of you listening to the podcast.
Yeah, we have established a policy. You can only listen to us in the morning. So if you're listening in the afternoon or evening, screw off, pause it, and come back in the morning.
That's right. So we're only wishing you a good morning. We're not doing a whole thing with a good afternoon and a good evening. That's just way too much
Absolutely
work.
not. No, we're recording in the morning, and you have to listen to the morning. And if you don't like it, listen to somebody else.
Yep, correct.
All right. I don't know. I have not yet figured out a way to enforce that, but so we'll just go with the honor system for now.
Oh, trust me, we're working on it though.
I saw that Amazon bought the what's that biggest company that makes robot vacuums?
iRobot. Yeah, that makes sense.
And now privacy experts are like, now Amazon's going to have the map to your house.
Basically,
well, good luck. I don't know how they monetize that, but I'm sure Jeff will figure out a way.
Yeah. I mean, it's already integrated. I have one, and you can set it so that you can give it access to your location of your phone. So that you can have the vacuum when you leave the house.
Oh, nice. And then I imagine the other way, if you get back inside a radius around your house, it'll just tell it to go back to the plug charging station.
I haven't tried it yet because I refuse to give it location access, for my phone. It does tend to be a little bit noisy, so it would be a very convenient thing to have it, vacuum when you're not home. But I just don't like giving. I just don't trust that they're going to keep my data private. So,
yeah, I'm on the opposite side, where if something can give me just a tiny fraction bit of more convenience, I'll tell somebody anything they want. I will. Whenever I hear somebody concerned about privacy or something like that, my response is something I've stolen from Adam Carolla, which is, you think that's bad? Imagine this: the government wants to assign every human a number at birth and then use that to track how much money you earn over your entire life. And bad news is they did it 70 or 80 years ago.
Right. Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I shared that meme with you and some of the guys, Richard and Kurt, about the human telling the monkey that he's just a stupid animal, and the monkey's reply being, "You pay 30% of your income to the government to stay out of jail."
I saw that one somewhere else. That's great. Yeah, that's hysterical.
Yeah, it's I had a coworker that made the argument of you never really own anything.
True.
If every year to keep owning it, you have to pay the government a tax on it, whether it's land or your house or your car or anything that you buy that you have to pay sales tax on. It's like, can you really say that you own it if the government charges you to keep using it or to buy it in the first place?
Yeah. Well, to buy it in the first place, you have the tax, right? You have a sales tax, and then not everything, is taxed over and over.
Yeah, not everything's recurring, but
right.
Most things that you buy from,
but I'm sure they're going to try and find a way to do that. I'm wondering if those 87,000 armed IRS agents are going to be enforcing anything for the middle class that they're being trained like FBI agents.
That's a lot of people. You get to carry a gun, and now the other side of the argument is we're only restoring the workforce to where it used to be. It's not a net increase of 87,000. It's just apparently.
So why were they let go to begin with?
Well, W and Trump, cut some people loose to lower the operating budget of that agency.
Yeah,
and so now you've got somebody who's a little bit less. Well, I don't know. I was going to say somebody who's a little less into spending government money, but truth of the matter is every party expands government spending when they're in control. And,
of course.
Republicans only speak against government spending when the other side's in control. When they control the Senate and the House and the White House, then they spend money willy-nilly, just like the left does.
I mean, it's really doesn't matter who's in power because it's really a conflict. It's ridiculous. There's no consequences for anybody in government when they misallocate money, when they don't, when they don't have to bring in, any money. They're just spending money from us. And under threat of death if we don't give them our money. It's, and there's no consequences if they misallocate it.
I remember the very first
a
time
nightmare.
I was directly exposed to that was my first exchange tech project that I did alone.
Okay.
When I went to the Army Corps of Engineers in Illinois, and I get in there, and this is 2007, and there are giant plasma screens and Herman Miller office chairs everywhere at this office. I was like, wow, you guys have a pretty nice setup here. What's up with that? And the manager is like, oh, well, we had some extra money in the budget. If we didn't spend it, we weren't going to get it next year. So we bought everybody a Herman Miller chair for $1,500 and a 32-inch plasma screen, which it's not the same like it is now. You don't get a 32-inch plasma or flat panel TV for $100 at Walmart in 2007 like you do in 2022.
Yeah.
Those were a couple thousand a piece. And it was like a party because, if we don't use the money this year, then we won't get it next year. So we got to spend it on something.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I worked for, I guess it was, it might've been the Army. It wasn't Army Corps of Engineers, but it was a military branch of the government in the Atlanta area. And I remember my company I had 2 weeks to get this project done. And I had to work with the contractors that worked for the government, and I got 10% done of the entire project because they refused to do work. I mean, not they refused, they just were on break all the time.
Yeah.
Couldn't get me any information. And basically, the project failed because they refused to do any of the things that I asked for. And it was, I had never seen in any private business the amount of waste in terms of laziness, in terms of not wanting to do any work. They just sat there and, we're talking on the phone. I mean, I couldn't believe, and this was from, a disciplined branch of the military. These were retired, these were retired ex-military guys that I was working with.
It's funny. I
expected to be when I got that project. I'm like, oh my God, I better be on my toes.
Right.
I better, I better get this stuff done yesterday. I've seen the movies.
Yeah. I went and saw our mutual friend, Rob Phillips, the other day, and friend of the show. And we were having a quick talk in his office before I had to hit the road. And he was, we were talking a little bit about, he's like, so where are you at politically these days? And I said, I'll explain exactly where I'm at politically. I don't want people telling me what to do, and I don't want the money I send in taxes to go to projects that we know don't work. That's the extent of where I am politically. Don't tell me what to do, and don't waste my money on stuff doesn't work. And beyond that,
you need to start your own party, because I think everybody's in that boat. I don't know. Call me crazy, but I feel like you'd have a pretty good platform to run on.
Right, but it's just but that's not extreme enough to get anybody to write checks. That's the problem. Anyway, so you and I are about to not next week, but the week after that, we're headed to Dallas for the PodMove convention, which I'm
podcast really movement. Yes.
Yeah,
it's our first one.
I'm looking forward to. We tried another one, but I got sick and I was attending another work convention at the same time, so I wasn't able to be of much use to you. That was Podfest in Orlando. May, June of last year, or no, of this year. I'm sorry. Yeah, that was just a couple months ago. Man, it feels like
flies.
a lifetime ago, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But we're going out to Dallas, and I'm looking forward to that. I haven't been to Dallas ever. This isn't really a tourist trip. This isn't a fun trip, but it's also not a trip where I'm being, some company is sending me out there. This is a mix of fun and business. So I'm looking forward to getting to experience Dallas a little bit, going to some of the parties that are going to be run by the convention. That should be fun.
Yeah. And on this trip, I'm putting it out there right now that I am actually going to digest all of the things, or at least some of the things that I bring in and I learn from this convention, and implement a few of them, because that's my biggest. I love going to networking events. I love going to conventions, personal development, education, and more often than not, I leave it all there. I mean, I take notes, I take screenshots, and then I just
revisit.
I never revisit, or I don't remember. And so I'm going to spend at least one day afterwards, consolidating everything, making a priority list. And so I figure if I put it out here on the podcast, I'm going to hold myself to it.
Yeah, agreed. I don't know that I'm gonna. I was looking at seeing of whether if I could make any changes to my flights or stay another day, and I don't think I'm going to be able to on account of I haven't lined up somebody to look in on my cat, and with me being away for 4 nights, adding a fifth or a sixth night, I think is going to be a little. And I'm going to have work stuff pile up too that I need to address on the weekend. So, but what you and I can do certainly is that Saturday that you're still out there, we could just do a remote debrief and talk about everything. I'll do it from where I'm sitting right now, and you can do it from the hotel room. And I'm thinking maybe we even maybe try to record an episode that Saturday to release on the following Monday.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So so bring either your headset or your microphone, or I can bring my headset and leave it with you, whatever you want to do.
I'll definitely bring a headset.
Okay, cool. All right, you want to jump into our final section of this book?
Absolutely.
All right, I'm excited about this one. It's not quite as the last two about stress and anxiety were very good as far as like, I'm in a crisis, I need a resource to help me deal with this. Where this is more of a long-term planning, looking forward to the future. What can I start implementing to make my life better? On sort of a goal setting and getting more familiar with your own values. So I'm excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing, the section of happiness, and I just want to be happy. And when somebody says I just want to be happy, the way she addresses it, and I agree too, it usually just means I don't want to feel unpleasant emotions anymore. Which
that's nice. Yeah,
that's a great idea. If you can figure it out, please let us know. You should be the one with the podcast, not us, or the one writing books, because just filtering out unpleasant emotions would be lovely. The thing I made a note of, and I listened to an episode of Sam Harris has some subscriber content that he does through his Waking Up app, which is his meditation app, where he was talking to I forget what her name was, but she basically has the most successful, most attended class at Yale, which is all about, how to be happy, what is happiness and how to be happy. And they were both complaining about the idea that happiness is just such a wide open term because so many people mean so many different things. And I was thinking about it. It's kind of like love. It's like, I love my cat. I love my career. I love Crab Rangoon. How do we make that one word apply to all those things without just making it so broad that it doesn't really mean much anymore? You know what I mean?
Yeah, to me, I take it as kind of a sense of like a peaceful fulfillment. If I've tried to get more specific with the terms, I feel like there's, from my experience, I should say, is when people are like, well, I just wish I could be happy. There's like a piece missing, right? And to me, when I've got a piece missing somewhere, or I'm not paying attention to a certain area of my life that's important to me, that's where I feel that I'm not so happy. I'm not so, and to me, that's a little bit more accurate to say for myself. It would be, not feeling totally fulfilled or, going as deep as I could be in certain areas of my life.
Yeah, I think that's a good and healthy way to define it. But if you find yourself defining it in another way, like I'm dealing with unpleasant emotions or unpleasant circumstances, therefore there is something critically wrong with my life and I need to change things. It's like, no, the idea of an always happy existence, you don't have that coming. None of us do. So stop setting that as the standard and you'll be disappointed less. Yeah.
And that's one of the dangers of spending so much time on social media is most of the time people are posting the happy stuff. And so now you're like, well, it all kind of blends in. So you're only seeing like the happy moments for the most part, for the happy moments of everybody's lives. And so now you're thinking, you're forgetting all of the downsides, all of the, the depressing side, the things that didn't work out for them. They're not documenting and sharing that. Right. No, and so now your brain's been polluted and you've set that bar so high for yourself that, it's hard to keep up.
I'm certainly not doing that. I mean, I am only sharing fun trips to restaurants. I mean, I'm only sharing the stuff that I think is fun and exciting. And part of that is because I want to curate my own social media presence so that I can look back on it and remember the fun stuff. I'm not,
Right. Yeah.
you know, oh, I woke up in a crappy mood because this morning I woke up, my neck hurt because I laid on my pillow wrong, and I'm 44 years old, so that happens.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take a picture of myself looking all miserable and then put that on my Instagram to refer back to a year from now.
Right. Because you're not looking right. So there's enough, and that goes to show life is hard enough, and we have enough stuff that brings us down. So let's, why not record the happy stuff? Because you're not going to be looking back, in the future going, you know what? I just haven't felt upset enough lately. So let me go check out that, oh yeah, that's right. When I woke up with a crink in my neck. Yeah. Oh yeah. I feel better now.
And so just understand that, we're all participating in that problem. I'm looking at somebody else's Instagram and I'm seeing all their happy moments and I'm feeling, man, I wish I was where they are right now, but I'm doing the same thing. And so, I should be able to stay present enough to realize, oh, okay, they're probably just using social media the same way I am, which is to record their pleasant memories because it's more fun that way.
That's a great reminder. That's a great thing to think about. Exactly.
So why am I going to put pressure on myself to look at somebody else's life when I'm doing the same thing, and trying to, I'm not actively trying to make my friends jealous that, I have a great life. It's just, why would I share the less fun negative stuff? So it's important to remember, okay, other people are probably using this the same way that I am, and having bad days and going through unpleasant things doesn't mean that there's something dramatically wrong with my life. It just means that I'm a human being.
Yeah, it's important. She talks about how, being human is really having a mix of all the feelings: love, joy, fear, shame, and hurt, all of those things. And by having the other feelings, it makes the good feelings even better. Because you've got that comparison, you've got that yin and yang, you've got the two sides of it.
Yeah, one of the things that she said that resonated with somebody else who I look to for advice frequently, the two guys that are the minimalists that had the documentary on Netflix and sort of are, real big thought leaders in the minimalistic movement, Josh and Ryan, they both said, we don't set goals. We set our values, and then that'd be good. No, we don't set goals. We set our values, and then we try to, set our agenda on a daily basis to do things that are in line with our values, and then we'll feel like we accomplished something. And so, one of the things that Dr. Julie suggests, and that I also encourage, is figure out what it is that's important to you. Figure out what you actually care about, and not not what you say matters to you as lip service, so that people think you're a good person or a good guy. And actually figure out what truly matters to you, and then align your daily activities with those values, and you'll be able to put your head on the pillow at night feeling like you accomplished something meaningful, right?
Yeah.
Instead of, I want to own a new 4 Series this time next year. That's a goal to shoot for if one of your values is, I want a nice car that people are going to stop and look at while it drives down the road. If that, if the feeling of prestige and influence and wealth, if those are values that you find super important, then by all means work on doing the things today that will make you feel like you're serving those values down the road.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to judge and say those are bad values to have and my values are better than those, because I've got some that some people would certainly say are indulgent, but those are the things that matter to me. And the more that I can serve those values on a daily basis, the more I'll feel like I'm accomplishing something every day.
And I think it's also important to remember that, when you start putting a lot of weight on external things, things that can be lost, can be kind of taken away, or you can lose, you just need to make sure you've got, not make sure, but you can, it'd be beneficial to have some internally focused values, so that you're not, your whole identity and your whole value isn't riding on the fact that you have that 4 Series, because, let's say, God forbid you get an accident, or, you lose your job, you can't make the payments on it anymore, you got to sell it or whatever. And it's just like, well, okay, that was, that's not all who you are. And that's not all that, represents you. So you have these other things, that you value, such as being an honest person, being kind to people, being trustworthy, being proactive, all these other things that identify who you are, that really you've got more control over, and you take with you regardless of what happens.
Yeah. Dr. Julie has on figure 10 of chapter 33, she has just a little square with like, I don't know, 30 different words in there that are potential values. And one of the exercises is just go through and circle the ones that you find most meaningful to you.
Mm-hmm.
And that will help you kind of drill down on what you actually find important. Even a step more than that you can do outside of the book. There's a website that I went to some months ago and then just revisited this morning as I was getting ready to record this episode with you. It's Personal Values, and it's Personal Values with a dot between the U and the ES at the end.
Okay.
And you just go there and they list a whole lot of potential values, and you just click on the ones that resonate with you. And then it basically gives you a quiz where it'll show you two of them, and you click on the one that you rank higher than the other. And then at the end of it, it'll give you a top 5 in order to say, okay, here are the ones that matter most to me.
Oh,
and
I like it.
Yeah, I ran through it again this morning, and here are my top 5. Control, independence, freedom, trust, and adventure. Those came out as my top 5 values.
Nice.
Yeah, with control being the number 1, which is something that I should probably work toward, figuring out a way to let go a little bit more and be a little more comfortable when I'm in situations that I'm not in control of.
I like how I'm going to do the quiz afterwards.
Yeah, I'll share a link on the on the notes for our episode too, where if somebody wants to go through and see what they.
Mm-hmm.
I had a conversation with Kurt and Richard one night at Mathers where I was talking about going through, and it was a different quiz that I didn't find to be quite as in depth as this one, but on that one, autonomy came up as my number 1. Like the fact that I don't like other people setting my agenda for me and telling me what to do, which can be a little bit of a challenge when it comes to close personal relationships and the idea of having children. You have to certainly be willing to compromise on your autonomy if you're sharing your life with another person or making kids that you are responsible for taking care of. But at that point, that was the one that came up high, and it's kind of echoed a little bit with the 2 values of independence and freedom that were at the top of my list today. And look, it's if you want to make those, control too. I mean, if you're sharing your life with another person or kids, it's hard to live out control with just having a cat in my camper with me. I mean, this morning he saw a wasp outside of one of my windows, and it was the window that is between me and my camera. And so all he was doing was going crazy and it felt like pure chaos trying to get him to relax a little bit. And he's sitting over on the other side taking a nap right now. So thankfully he got in order. But so
the whiskey worked.
Exactly. Yeah. Got him. There's my friend has CBD treats for her cats that she gives them when she travels with them so that they kind of can chill out a little bit. And I need to get some of those for him, some sort of mild tranquilizer to chill him out when I need him to. Yeah. So that's something I would recognize or recommend rather is figure out what your values are so that on a daily basis you can try to match up what it is you're doing to what it is you care about. Because if you spend a lot of time doing things that don't really matter to you on a deep level, then you're going to feel kind of frustrated and unfulfilled, I'd say.
And I think it's a good baseline for, she talks a little bit later in this section on relationships, but, figuring out what those values are, it makes it a little bit easier than to kind of hold that up against all the people that you have relationships with in your life, whether it's, a romantic partner or a friend, somebody you just met, are they, do they align with your values? And, time is limited and we're able to connect with people, thankfully, so much easier these days between social media and everything else. But, the amount of time and energy we have is limited. So, who are we going to spend our time and energy with? My opinion is it should be somebody whose values line up with yours.
Yeah. And there's some there's some more flexibility than you might think when it comes to that, because I have pretty deep, meaningful relationships and friendships with people who our politics don't match up 100%. Our religious views don't match up 100%. But the things that we find important to focus on and the way you treat other people, there can be a very high match, even though your religion and your politics. I mean, really, it's more about, you know, how much do your religious and political views impact how you treat people on a daily basis.
Yeah. So, I mean,
know?
I guess that's a question I would have, and I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm wondering if like religion and politics, those wouldn't be actual values, because it would be, I would think that would be, you'd want to go into the details of both of those. Like, so the religion might be, you know, do unto others, right? Well, that's kind of universal between a lot of religions,
right.
you know,
and you could just chalk that up to kindness or compassion, things like that.
Right. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just, yeah. So I totally agree with what you just said. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just wondering, yeah, if there's another way we can describe, religion and politics. I think, yeah, you need to get into the nitty gritty, you know.
Yeah, it would really depend on how you live those things out, right?
Because yeah, the purpose of why you're living that out, that's the value part, right? And that's where you're agreeing with them, but how you do it, the methodology might be different. So right.
So yeah, if your religious views lead you to put a very high priority on things like order and compliance and things like that, then you and I probably aren't going to be able to get super close, because, you know, I value, you know,
disorder like, and being not compliant.
Disorder and non-compliance are very important to me. That's a funny way of saying it, but yeah, I mean, freedom, independence, adventure, I mean, things like that, you know, do not line up super well with a dramatically, I don't know, for lack of a better word, authoritarian view on politics or religion. So if you have that, you know, we might be limited to how tight we're going to be able to be.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That goes against my values. Give me just a second. I got to turn my air conditioner thermostat down a little bit.
Unacceptable. I want you to sweat.
Okay, I'm done.
All right. Well, you're quick.
It's just it's mounted on the ceiling. All I had to do was turn it on. Okay, so yeah, I would say again, I would never say, oh, I can't hang out with you because your religion doesn't match up with mine. But I could say I can't hang out with you because the rigid way that you live your life and expect other people to live theirs doesn't match up with my values.
Right. You
know what I mean?
That's fair.
But at the end of the day, you know, which text you find sacred or which man in the sky you pray to. No, that's not a deal breaker for me. But how you implement that in your own life and what you expect of other people, that could be something that is going to not stop us from being courteous and friendly and cordial to each other, but it could stop how intimate I want to get with you as a friend or as a romantic partner. You know what I mean?
100%.
Okay. So one of the things she says in chapter 34 that I really like is the idea of linking your intentions to your sense of identity, which, you know, we talk about all the time when it comes to habits and stuff. If your why is strong enough, then the what and the how will kind of just come along for the ride. You just need the tools to make it happen, right? So if you think of yourself as, I am somebody that regularly trains, I am somebody that has a healthy sex life, I mean, whatever it is, if you think of yourself as, I am the person that ... then it becomes so much easier for you to actually implement that on a daily basis.
And I think part of that, and now that you said that, it kind of came to mind. And I'm also reading part of the chapter summary here, where she talks about, you know, a lot of times we go and have a radically huge goal, you know, that we put in front of us, which, you know, which you never do. So
I do constantly.
But if you change the approach here to, you know, how would this person who does these things, or is somebody who exercises, or is somebody who's an athlete, or, you know, is somebody who, you know, is successful, how would they behave? I think what that does is it kind of programs our brain to actually look for the little things too. So maybe you're standing up a little bit taller now, right? Maybe
Yeah.
you walk with your chest up and your shoulders back a little bit more, because somebody who's successful or is a business owner, that's your impression of what somebody who is in that position behaves like. And now you're actually, instead of doing this radically huge goal of saying I'm going to have a multi-million-dollar business in less than a year, you're basically starting really tiny, right? With tiny little habits and behaviors. And you are then becomes the supporting, and you can do that very easily. You can do that very consistently. You can do that on a regular basis. And then you can build from there, and you can move on to the next step. So it's maybe somebody who's responsible with their finances. And so now maybe you're looking twice at, when you're buying something on Amazon, you're all right, well, I don't really need that feature, so I'm going to go with the less expensive option. Things like that, right? And so I think that's one of the most powerful things of assuming this identity of somebody who's already doing what you want to do, is you're naturally building in these tiny little habits and to help support the overall mission that you're on in terms of changing your identity.
Yeah, I've done that in one particular area, which leads me. It's not all positive sometimes, but I think of myself as someone that seeks out and goes on challenging, exciting hikes. And so
okay.
I do, once I get one on my calendar, then it's just like, okay, now I'm the guy that gets myself into the shape and buys the things that I need to do to ensure that I'm going to finish that hike successfully. And so the result is, when I don't have one on my calendar, or when I try to get one and recreation.gov doesn't give me a spot in the lottery to get the permit to do it, then I just get disappointed. A lot of people do. I get disappointed, and the wheels kind of fall off a little bit, where I just don't put as much energy into my exercise or my training or my diet or whatever, because it's like, I don't have anything sitting on my calendar that I have to work towards, so screw it. But when I do have one, it's like, all right, now I'm the guy that does what I need to do to get ready for this thing. And that includes buying the equipment and getting my steps in, and spending my time on smaller hikes in between today and the one I want to go on. And it's just because the idea of setting out on a hike and then giving up or having to be rescued off the mountain before the hike is over, just no way that I can tolerate that. So once I get it in pen on my calendar, then I do what I have to do to be ready for it. And, again, it can be a little bit of a mixed bag, because when I don't have that to look forward to, it's a little harder to motivate myself to get up every day and get myself in the shape of the guy who can do that Half Dome or Grandfather Mountain or Kilimanjaro or whatever it is that I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's a form of accountability. Having that destination at the end, that goal is a form of accountability.
Yeah, I think I told you a while ago, I'm thinking I did that Mammoth March here in Orlando. I think that was last year. It was either earlier this year or last year. That was 20 miles in 8 hours, I think. And they do at least one a year that is 30 miles in 10 hours. And it's coming up in New Jersey in October. And I'm really thinking that I might go up and do it and see if I can. It was a lot of work to do 20 miles in 8 hours, but it was just a walk through the woods. But I still, my knees and my hips were a little sore at the end of it. And 30 will be worse, obviously, because 30 is worse than 20. But I'm leaning toward giving it a shot, and so we'll see. It's a long day.
For sure, man. Hey, yeah, keep us posted. Let us know what you're gonna do.
Yeah, I probably need to just book it, and then I'll do what I have to make it happen. The other thing is, it won't be cargo shorts and a tank top October in New Jersey like it was in Florida. It'll be a little chillier, so I'll have to do the layers and have a backpack for it.
It'll be easier without the heat, though, for sure.
That's true. Yeah. So but that's part of the the identity and the values. It's like getting out there in the world and in nature and going for long walks is something that is really important to me. My value of adventure, it certainly, and variety was another one of the ones in the top. And going to a new place and going for a hike is one of the most exciting things that I like to do. So it's definitely something that I'm going to keep doing as long as physically I'm able to.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Right. Let's talk about relationships. This is a good section. So she starts off with just saying how important relationships are to all of us. I mean, we're social primates at the end of the day, right? So our strong relationships to our families and our romantic partners and our friends are going to be a great source of joy in our lives if we put in the time to learn how to do them the right way, right? Otherwise, it'll be a great source of pain. She goes through some really important myths like that are not true at all. Love shouldn't be hard. You should be as one in your relationships. You should always be together, and you should be happily ever after. And relationship success means staying together at all costs, which none of those things are true.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully these days people, more people realize that, but I know we all kind of get, I feel like we're getting, a lot of the fairy tales and the stories we grew up on in the movies we watched.
Yeah.
They were putting out messages like that.
Yeah. Disney movies and rom-coms, right?
Yeah.
Are the enemy when it comes to setting reasonable expectations for what relationships are like.
Right. And again, those are fleeting moments. We got to think of them as like social media posts, right? Those were, sometimes that's a happy blip, even movies and rom-coms, they leave out, years and days of time and day-to-day life, so.
Yeah, one recommendation I have, she gets into attachment theory a little bit and the different types of, anxious, avoidant, secure, and disorganized attachments that we form. There's a book called Attached by Levine and Heller that I read a few months ago. And it is very good for helping you figure out what your attachment style is and working with your partner to figure out what theirs is. And then if you know what your attachment style is, then that helps you know a little bit more about what you need to bring to the table to make a better chance of things working out. So I would definitely recommend reading that book, and getting familiar with, what the impact of your early relationships when you were a kid is going to have on what you're looking for in a partner. I know for sure I'm anxious. My attachment style is definitely anxious. And I can look at exactly, what played into that growing itself. I think I read that half of women about have a secure attachment style, and then the other half have, avoidant, anxious, or I think women, from the book, if I remember correctly, women tend to be a little bit more on the anxious side than men, and men tend to be a little bit more on the avoidant when referring to people that have one of the insecure styles.
Okay.
Men tend to be a little bit more on the avoidant side, and women tend to be a little bit more on the anxious side. The disorganized attachment, that's usually only the result of some pretty traumatic childhood experiences, like, heavy abuse or heavy neglect. So it's the rarest of the types that are out there.
But yeah, go ahead. Why don't you go ahead and describe what disorganized attachment style is? I think it's pretty obvious what, secure and avoidant is, but how do you take, because I had never heard of disorganized until this book.
Yeah,
you had mentioned the other two, the secure, and avoidant, but and that was, I didn't even understand the whole attachment style till you brought it up from the other book. But
yeah,
in this one, she did talk about disorganized a little bit, and so my interpretation is that it's it's inconsistent behavior from your parent when you're growing up, so you really don't know whether they're going to be there or not.
Exactly. And so the way that I understand that it manifests itself as an adult is you will display many of the behaviors of avoidant and anxious attachment styles and kind of flop between the two of them almost chaotically, where it's the roughest.
That's a mess.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So thankfully I don't have that one. It seems to be the hardest one to overcome. And I mean, honestly, I would say all of the insecure attachment styles, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized, could probably benefit from doing some fairly serious work with a therapist, a professional, because you'll also it's interesting the way that anxious people almost always seek out avoidant partners, and it's it's not the easy way to work, but yeah, if you're anxious, you're more likely to seek out an avoidant than a secure.
It makes sense because that's what you're familiar with, right? You're right.
That's what you're familiar with. And as humans, we have a tendency to, when a need is not met in childhood, what we'll do is we'll try to find somebody who's going to give us the same difficulty in our romantic relationships that we suffered as children with our parents, because our brain is saying, look, if you can find somebody like your mother or father, whoever your primary caregiver was, who, has a lot of their same characteristics and a lot of their same shortcomings, if you can find them in your romantic relationship and then you make it work with them, well, then you can heal what happened to you as a kid.
Yeah.
And so we try exactly. It's difficult. So we try to repeat those traumas in a way and try to grow into somebody who can figure out a way to make it work. And then, if I can make it work with them, then I'll be able to heal from what I didn't get with my mom or my dad.
Yeah.
And, and sometimes that can work, but it's rare that it works. And again, it's even rarer that it works without you trying to navigate that relationship with the help of a professional.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about some ways we can get better at relationships. And really the main way is by improving ourselves, right? You're not going to be able to make your relationship better by just trying to fix your partner.
No.
I mean, good. You want to try it, give it a shot. But
even if you beg them, no,
begging them, threatening them, giving them ultimatums. I mean, that stuff is not going to work as much as, increase the health of who you are coming into the relationship, and then you can maybe make the relationship better.
Yeah.
Or like we learned from, No More Mr. Nice Guy. The other thing is if you make yourself better in the relationship, you might find that relationship doesn't work for you anymore because you could potentially outgrow that relationship.
And he does walk people through also, right, kind of writing down your values in terms of what you're looking for, in that relationship as well. Yeah. So again, kind of comes back to that values and the identity of who you want to be, and using that as a filter.
Yeah. And as a rule, I mean, get as healthy as you can possibly get inside the relationship that you're currently in, and that will make the relationship better. Mm-hmm. If you get less healthy in the relationship you're in, then your relationship's going to suffer. I mean, it's pretty intuitive to figure that out. But one of the things, another book that I can recommend very highly that I read recently was Why Won't You Apologize by Dr. Harriet Lerner. And it does such a good job of helping you figure out when and how you should apologize. And one of the things I learned from the podcast, that she was a guest on Brene Brown's podcast, and they talked about, the people that can offer and do offer the best apologies are the strongest people with the best confidence, because they can very easily say, okay, I can admit that I mishandled the situation and I can honestly apologize for it without feeling like my value as a human being is being minimized or being reduced by the fact that I said, yeah, I did something wrong and I'm real sorry about it.
Yeah.
Because if your self-esteem is really teetering on that knife's edge where you feel like, oh no, the world's going to figure out I'm just a piece of crap, then it's very hard to offer a sincere apology, because you're worried that and I've done this before too. I had this discussion with a friend recently where I feel so much of the time that apologizing for my behavior is essentially the same thing as pleading guilty before a court. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, I admitted I was wrong. Now give me the sentence, give me the punishment, because here we go.
Yeah.
And you don't have that problem quite so much if you're confident in who you are as a person. And again, vulnerability comes up so many times in all the self-help books that I read, where this ability to have strength and honesty to the point where you're willing to say, okay, world, here's who I am. You can like it, you can not like it, but this is who I am as a person, and it's up to you to respond to it.
Yeah.
Having the strength to do that is difficult, but it also seems to be the greatest marker of a healthy emotional life and healthy relationships.
Yeah. And something that I just thought of when you're talking about that in terms of the punishment, I totally see that point of view, saying, hey, listen, I don't want to admit I did anything wrong because I don't want to be punished. But to me, sometimes I think I can interpret some of that quote unquote punishment as doing things that are uncomfortable at that time and in the future. And to me, that's a little bit of a punishment because it's not something that we default to, right? So it doesn't have to be some horrible thing, like you're going to get, whipped or whatever, or thrown in jail, but it could be like, all right, now I gotta feel those uncomfortable feelings because I got to admit, that I made a mistake, that I'm not as good as I thought I was.
Right.
That in and of itself is a punishment. That's why I look at it, because it doesn't feel good. And then trying to remember that in the future and make a different decision or choice, that takes time and energy and discipline. And that is, kind of a punishment, because it's not not necessarily something pleasant that you default to doing. So I don't know if that is anything beneficial you can take away from that to help, but that's kind of how I think about it is, these things certainly that I have to change about myself aren't pleasant and easy to do. So I am kind of getting punished in a way.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. But, I think there's benefit in being able to separate, you can't say, I'm not, as a person, my identity is not tied to my actions, because it certainly is. Your actions, you are what you do, but you're not only what you do. And
that's
so
a great point. Yes.
The fact that you make a mistake and you do something wrong and you mistreat somebody and you need to offer an apology for that. One of the things, I've talked about before is, there are men out there in the manosphere on the internet giving advice about, how to attract and keep women, and so, who have the attitude of never apologize. You should never apologize to a woman because it'll make you appear weak and blah, blah, blah. And, the way I see it is, if as a man, if you're constantly apologizing and taking responsibility for things that are not your fault, or you're never apologizing and never taking responsibility for things that are your fault, you're too weak. You're both are weak. Exactly.
Both sides are weak. And it's because it's lazy. To me, that's laziness. I am not, and also it's being kind of, like not paying attention. It's like you don't care enough to make the distinguish, to put the energy into making the to distinguish between what what really you really did wrong versus what you didn't, what you really should be taking responsibility for. And then to me, that's insincere. If you're never apologizing, or if you're apologizing for everything, it's meaningless at that point. Right.
And that's one of the things that Dr. Lerner said in her book, which is, if you're having a fight with your spouse or your partner, and you basically determine, okay, I'm only 10% responsible for this, and they're responsible for the other 90, then offer a very sincere and very direct apology for the 10% that you are responsible for. And then for the other 90, you get to say, I don't currently see it the way that you see it. I'm going to think more about this, and I'm going to try to reevaluate, what part I brought to this problem, but I'm real sorry for when I did this.
That's good. Yeah. Be specific.
Yeah. Be very specific for the part of it that you realize you did wrong. And don't make it conditional. Don't say, I'm only going to apologize for my 10% if you apologize for your 90%. Just put that 10% out there and say, I messed up in this particular way, and I'm real sorry about it, and I'm going to try not to do it again. And then whether they apologize for their part or not, let me tell you, they're much more likely to apologize for their part if you're willing to start the process and bring the olive branch that said, hey, I don't see this conflict exactly the way you see it, but I do see my behavior in this particular way is wrong, and I'm sorry for it. And how can we move forward?
Yeah. I think part of that is taking time, some time to think about the situation, because you did something thinking you did the right thing, perhaps. And so now you really need to take some time and energy to think of it, try to get a different perspective of it, and see, hey, maybe from the other person's perspective, how they could have interpreted it in the wrong way. And that takes time. So a lot of times, I know for me, in the heat of the argument, in the heat of the battle or whatever, is not the time. I need more time than that, to have a sincere apology and to really feel it and mean it and know what, where I'm coming from. I definitely need some time. And we talked about that in some previous podcasts too, is I need, some time to kind of like walk away a little bit, take a break, a breather, in order to kind of settle down and get my thoughts in order. And
I've come around to seeing it way more your way. I mean, the the important thing, I think, is to tell your partner that that's what you're doing. Like, hey,
yeah. The assumption, and again, that's my assumption, is that they're not thinking that I'm leaving for good,
right,
or I'm never coming back, or I'm never going to readdress this issue again. If there's any indication of that, you're right. That needs to be communicated so that there's no.
And
yeah.
And part of the benefit of that is, your ability to see it with a new set of eyes is just dealing with what's going on with you physiologically in the heat of the argument of, getting your pulse rate down a little bit and maybe your blood pressure, just getting your body into a calmer place. And then that's going to let your brain work through this problem in a way that you can't when your body is telling you that you're in a threatening situation.
Yeah. And that really goes to reinforce the fact that, this and the other book that you talked about in terms of figuring out what your attachment style is and maybe what your partner's attachment style is, that is important, because in this case, I think the communication is key. So if I was dealing with, or if I was in a relationship with somebody who was, didn't have a secure attachment style, I might need to be a little bit more clear about, hey, I'm not leaving permanently. I'm not walking away from you in this situation. I just need a couple of minutes to gather my thoughts and we'll come back. Right. Whereas if I'm dealing with somebody with a different attachment style, I might not need to say that, but knowing that just makes things a little bit smoother in the whole resolution process.
Yeah. And some of these things, again, to figure out, what your style is, what their style is, how to proceed, you could very well benefit from the help of a therapist, which is the last chapter that we get into. And there's a couple of resources I want to share real quick. One thing is, there's a lot of online therapy companies out there. BetterHelp. What was the one that you experimented with?
Talkspace.
We had my therapist Renata on the podcast, one of our earlier episodes. She's pretty negative on all of those services. Her position is that, the best people aren't really being attracted to those. The best people are, having their own practice or working in a practice where they might offer virtual, but they're not. She basically said the rates that those companies provide their therapists aren't good enough to attract the best people, which, therapy, like everything else, is a market economy, right? So, but I will say one of the things she suggested was looking for a therapist on Psychology Today. I guess they have like a finder that you can use. Another one is a website called Therapy Den, which one of my favorite guys on mental health Instagram, Therapy Jeff, talks about Therapy Den. I don't know if he runs it or he's involved with it, but I love his Instagram. Therapy Jeff. He always shares really. He's got like 2 million followers on TikTok or something, and he does like these little snippets of advice and stuff, and he's really good. I like the guy a lot. So his website's Therapy Den. Now there is another one called, it's more of a broader mental health service called Mira, Mira. I think their website is Talk with Mira, and basically it's kind of a model, sort of like a virtual direct primary care model, which direct primary care is what you and I use for our doctors. And they have one that's virtual where you can get, if you're feeling sick, you can talk to somebody virtually and they can, give you a prescription or tell you what to do. And then you can also like go on site into like an urgent care place and have a meeting with somebody. But they have behavioral health too. For $25 a session once you're a subscriber to their service. I can't speak to how good it is.
Yeah.
Renata again says, watch out, but basically to subscribe to their service, I looked at it this morning, it's $300 a year and then $25 per session for talk therapy, basically.
Okay.
And so again, I don't know if it's any good or not, but I know it's cheap. And so it may be worth, signing up for a trial with them and doing a month and then seeing how their therapy is, because $25 a month is hard to beat. Now, again, you have to pay a membership fee, either $300 a year or like $40 or $60 a month. I forget what it costs. And then on top of that is $25 for a therapy session. If it's good, it might be a great value. If it sucks, then it's a bad idea. I don't know which it is, because I'm all set. I've already got a doctor and I've got a therapist, so I haven't tried it out. But it is something that might be worth considering if it's not already covered by your insurance. And that's the other thing. You may have an insurance program that has way better mental health benefits than you know about. So that could be something that you can leverage. And it's out there. You and your employer are paying for it, whether you use it or not. So it may be something that you want to look into.
Yeah. And if you need some assistance immediately, because that could be a whole process.
Yeah.
We've got the new 988 hotline you can dial instead of 911. You call 988. That's the suicide and crisis lifeline. And what's nice is you can actually text 988 and chat with somebody over text, or you can go to the website. You go to 988lifeline.org/chat, and you can type from a browser, and they respond 24/7 to calls, chats, or texts from anyone. And it's not just for suicide. It's basically mental health, substance abuse crisis, and we'll connect you with a trained crisis counselor. So if you need something immediately, 988 is a way to go. And then longer term, for longer term support, any of those sites like Psychology Today is a good spot as well. My dad, who's a therapist, has recommended the same website to me as well.
Awesome. So so we've gone through each of the sections of our book here. I think we're going to have at least one future episode where we interview one of our friends and listeners who has gone through the book and talk to him a little bit about what he found valuable in it. May try to see if we can line up one more.
I'd like to at least one more. Yeah,
at least one more person who's either been exposed to the book or has opinions on the book, has read the book. Ideally, maybe I'll reach out to Dr. Julie and see if we can interview her.
Yeah, why not?
And sure. All she can say is no or ignore us.
Yep.
And then we'll be on to the next thing, which. We have announced that our next book is going to be Tiny Habits, but I don't know that we're going to get into it first thing right away. We may do some other stuff before that. So be on the lookout for announcements on our Instagram about what we're going to do next.
Yeah.
And that's that about covers it for me. Anything else for you, Dan?
No, that's great. I think I'm excited for what we're gonna try here with a new segment with interviewing some listeners, as well as a new format for discussion. And like you said, we're gonna announce it on Instagram. So
that's one of the things I'm looking forward to from the podcast convention too, is trying to figure out some other maybe segments that we want to make recurring every episode and put a little bit more structure. I mean, right now, we have our intro, we talk about what's going on with us, and then we dive into the book. And we may try to find something else to pepper in there as well to give everybody something they can expect to hear from us every week. So I can't wait for that convention. We're going to try to maybe do not a live episode, but record an episode while we're out there in Dallas or something. So we'll stay tuned. We got some exciting stuff coming. Hope everybody enjoys it.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you soon, Charles. Thanks. This is good.
All right. Take care, Dan. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.